Hello everyone and welcome to BUS 327 Week 4 Stock Valuation. So the dividend discount model is a way of valuing a company based on the theory that a stock is worth the discounted sum of all future dividend payments. In other words, it's used to value stocks based on the net present value of the future dividends. And so there are three cases we're going to look at today. Case one is zero growth. Here we're going to assume that dividends remain at the same level forever. So dividend 1 would be equal to dividend sub 2, would be equal to dividend sub 3, and it just keeps going. So because the future cash flows are constant, the value of a zero growth stock is the present value of a perpetuity. And so we can write this out two ways. This is the long way. P sub 0 is equal to div sub 1 divided by 1 plus the market rate to the first power plus dividend sub 2 divided by 1 plus the market rate to the second power plus dividend sub 3 divided by 1 plus the market rate to the third power, and this just keeps on going. We can condense that down into this simple formula. P sub 0 is equal to the dividend divided by the market rate. So it's relatively simple. You just need to know what the dividend is and what the market rate is. The second case is a constant growth, meaning that the dividends are going to grow at a constant rate forever. So we can write this out. Here's the long way. Dividend sub 1 is equal to dividend sub 0 times 1 plus the growth rate. Dividend sub 2 is equal to dividend sub 1 times 1 plus the growth rate is equal to dividend sub 0 times 1 plus the growth rate to the second power. Or dividend sub 3 is equal to dividend sub 2 times 1 plus the growth rate, or we can just say dividend sub 0 times 1 plus the growth rate to the third power. So because the future cash flows are growing at a constant rate forever, then the value of that constant growth stock is the present value of a growing perpetuity, and we can just condense this down, because this would take forever. We can condense this down to P sub 0 is equal to div sub 0 divided by the market rate minus the growth rate. So let's look at an example. Suppose Big X Incorporated just paid a dividend of 50 cents, and it's expected to increase its dividend by 2% per year. If the market requires a return of 0.5 or 15% on assets of this risk level, how much should the stock be selling for? So we simply say P sub 0 is equal to 50 cents, the dividend now, or div sub 0, times 1 plus the growth rate, 1 plus 0.02, because it's growing at 2% per year. And then we're going to divide that by the market required return, which is 15%, or 0.15, and we're going to subtract from that 0.02, which is the growth rate. And if you work this all out, you get a price for this stock of $3.92 per share. What I like about this is you can actually test this out and use it in your own personal life. So if you have any stocks or you're thinking about buying stocks and you're wondering, is it priced well? Am I going to be paying too much for it? Or is it priced really good? Maybe I'm getting a great deal. So you can do this formula. If you know what the company paid in dividends, and you should be able to look this information up. And if you know the growth rate, you might be able to find that information too in the financial statements, in the notes to the financial statements. You should be able to find it, or in the investor's information. And then divide it by the market rate. So if you can determine what the market requires for a return on an asset of the same risk level, and then subtract your growth rate, you should be able to get a good idea of if the price is the stock is priced well. Okay, the third case, a little more complicated, but not really that difficult. This is differential growth. So here we assume that the dividend is going to grow at a different rate in the foreseeable future, and then it's going to grow at a constant rate thereafter. So to value a differential growth stock, we need to first estimate future dividends in the foreseeable future. So the problem will typically tell you that the stock is going to grow at such and such percent for the next 3 years, or it might say 4 years or 5 years, but that is your foreseeable future. So the first step is to estimate the future dividend in the foreseeable future. And then we're going to estimate the future stock price when the stock becomes a constant growth stock. And then we will compute the total present value of the estimated future dividends and the future stock price at the appropriate discount rate. So let's look at an example. So a common stock just paid a $2 dividend. The dividend is expected to grow at 8% for 3 years. That's your foreseeable future part. And then it will grow at 4% in perpetuity. So what is the stock worth? And the stock discount, or the discount rate, is 12%. So we have a $2 dividend. It's growing at 8% for 3 years, and then 4% after that, and the discount rate is 12%. So this is the formula for calculating that. And instead of going through the formula, which I think you can do, I'm going to show you that the answer here is $28.89. Okay, they first calculated the future dividends for the foreseeable future. They got $5.58, and then they calculated what it would be worth after that when it became a constant growth stock, and they got $23.31, added them together, $28.89. So what I really want to look at with you is this timeline, looking at the cash flows. This is often a simpler way to do this problem. So you draw out a timeline, you have dividend, the first dividend is $2, and remember it has a growth rate of 8%. So we're going to multiply it times 1 plus 8%. And then we have the second stock, or the second dividend in year 2, and it's $2 times 1.08 to the second power. And then the third one is 2 times 1.08 to the third power. Okay? All right, so then we're going to come down here and look at this one, and where they've just calculated it out. So the dividend sub 1, div sub 1, is $2.16. Div sub 2 would be $2.33. This is just the answer to what they're calculating up here. And then div sub 3 is $2.52. Okay? Now the constant growth phase beginning in year 4 can be valued as a growing perpetuity at time 3. Okay? So once we get to time 3, which we have done here, then we need to value this as a growing perpetuity. Okay, so you see here they have 2 times 108 to the third power times 1.04. All right, so this is going to give us $2.62. We're going to then divide that by the growth rate, or the market rate, minus the growth rate, which at this point has changed from 8% now to 0.04. Okay, so we're taking our third-year dividend and we are multiplying it by the growth rate. Okay, so we're starting here the constant growth phase beginning at year 4, and we're valuing this as a growing perpetuity. Okay, so what this gives us here, we come down here, we're going to take $2.16, the div sub 1, divide it by the market rate, 1.12. And then we're going to do the same thing with year 2, divide it by 1.12 to the second power. For that third year, we're going to take the constant of the dividend for the third year, 2.52. Then we're going to take our answer that we get from multiplying out the third year dividend times the constant growth rate, $2.62 divided by 0.12, the market rate, minus the growth rate. It's going to give us $32.75. Okay, they have the calculation actually right down here to show you. $2.62 divided by 0.08 is equal to $32.75. Okay, so what we have here is the value of the dividend, future value of the dividends for the first 3 years, and then we have valued the stock at that growing perpetuity. We're going to then divide it by 1 plus 12 to the third power. All of this is taking place in the third year. So this is representing the dividends from years 1, 2, and 3, and then the growing perpetuity. And so when you divide this out, you see that you get 28.89, which is the same thing that we got here. Okay? So if you want to look at this formula for a minute, we're taking P is equal to 2 times 1.08, that's your growth rate, dividing that by 0.12 minus 0.08. Then we're going to multiply all of this times 1 minus 1.08 to the third power divided by 1.12, that's your market rate, to the third power, plus 2 times 1.08 to the third power times 1.04. This is where it's becoming a perpetuity, where it's growing forever at 4%. And then we divide that by the market rate minus the growth rate, and then divide it by the market rate to the third power. So if we just work that on out, you'll see that it equals 28.89. And you're actually getting 2 parts to it, just like what they said back here. First, we're estimating future dividends into the foreseeable future. That is $5.58. That represents div sub 1, div sub 2, div sub 3. Okay? And then the second part is getting the present value of the estimated future dividends and the future stock price at the appropriate discount rate. So we add both of those together and get $28.89. So the third one, a little tricky because you have to do it in 2 parts. You have to figure out the growth rate for the foreseeable future and then the value of the growing perpetuity, and you have to add the 2 together. So I hope this helps explain a little bit about how to value a stock. I will see you guys in the discussion.